The writings of Adelborst and Apollonia. My name is Adelborst, the son of Apol and Adela. My people have chosen me as Grevitman over the Linde territories. Therefore, I wish to continue this book in the manner my mother spoke. After the Magi was defeated and Friarsberg was restored, a new mother had to be chosen. During her life, the mother had not named her successor. Her last will had disappeared and was nowhere to be found. 7 months later, a general assembly was held, specifically in Grenager because it borders the Saxonamarken. My mother was chosen, but she did not want to be the mother. She had saved my father's life, and as a result, they had come to love each other and wished to marry. Many tried to dissuade my mother from her decision, but she said, "An honored mother must be as pure of heart as she appears on the outside, and equally loving to all her children. Since I now love Apol above all in the world, I cannot be such a mother." Thus spoke and reasoned Adela, but the other castle maidens all wanted to become the mother. Each state fought for its own maiden and refused to concede. As a result, no mother was chosen, and the realm remains uncontrolled. From the sequel, you can understand this. Liudget, the recently deceased king, was chosen during the mother's lifetime, clearly with love and trust from all the states. It was his turn to reside at the great court in Dockham, and during the mother's life, he was honored there, for it was always so full of messengers and knights as never seen before. But now he was lonely and abandoned. Everyone feared that he would seize power and rule as the slave kings. Moreover, each chieftain thought that he did enough by watching over his own state, and no one yielded to another. With the castle maidens, it was even worse. Each of them boasted of her own wisdom, and if the Grevitmen did anything without their knowledge, they sowed distrust between him and his people. If there was a matter that concerned many states, and advice from a maiden was sought, all others claimed that she had spoken in favor of her own state. Thus, they created division among the states and broke the bond between them, causing the people of one state to be jealous of the people of another state and considering them strangers for the slightest inconvenience. The result was that the Golan or Truwens took away all the land up to the Scheldt, and the Magi up to the Weser. My mother explained how this happened, otherwise, this book would not have been written, although I have lost all hope that it will help. So, I am not writing in the expectation that it will win or preserve the land, that, in my opinion, is impossible. I write only for posterity so that they may know together in what manner we were lost and so that everyone can learn that every evil will receive its punishment. They called me Apollonia. 2 times 30 days after my mother's death, my brother Adelborst was found dead on the yard, his head split, and his body torn apart. My father, who was sick, died of fright. Then my younger brother Apol sailed to the west of Chunland. There, he built a castle named Lindesberg to avenge our suffering. Ralder lent him many years for this purpose. He had 5 sons. All of them bring terror to the Magi and glory to my brother. After the death of my mother and my brother, the bravest from our lands gathered and formed a covenant called Adilbond. To prevent harm to us, they brought me and my youngest brother Adelhert to the castle, me with the maidens and my brother with the warriors. When I was 30 years old, I was chosen as castle maiden, and when my brother was 50, he was chosen as Grevitman. On our mother's side, my brother was the 6th, but on our father's side, he was the 3rd. According to the law, his descendants were not always allowed to carry Linde after their names, but everyone wanted to preserve this in honor of my mother. Moreover, they also gave us a copy of the Book of Adel and his followers. That is what I am most pleased with, for thanks to my mother's wisdom, it came into the world. In the castle, I found other writings, including praises for my mother, and I want to record them here as well. These are the remaining writings of Bruno, who was a scribe at this castle. After the followers of Adela had transcribed everything, each in his realm, that was chiseled on the walls of the castles, they decided to choose a mother. For this purpose, a meeting was held at this Hiem. According to the initial advice of Adela, Tunja was recommended. This would have succeeded, but now, my castle maiden requested the floor, She had always thought that she would become the mother because she sat here in the castle, where most mothers were chosen. When she was given the floor, she opened her deceitful lips and spoke, "You all seem very attached to Adela's advice, but that will not close or silence my mouth. Who is Adela anyway, and where does it come from that you praise her so highly? Just like I am present now, she was a castle maiden here before. But does that make her wiser and better than I and all the others? Or is she more attached to our customs and traditions? If that were the case, she would have become the mother when chosen for it, but she preferred a marriage with all the joy and pleasures that come with it, instead of watching over herself and the people in loneliness. She is very far-sighted, that's true, but my eyes are far from dimmed. I have seen that she loves her husband, well, that is commendable, but I have also seen that Tointje is April's cousin. I won't say anything more." The leaders understood very well what she was aiming for, but discord arose among the people, and since the majority came from here, they did not want to grant that honor to Tointje. The arguments were over, the knives were drawn from their sheaths, and no mother was chosen. Shortly thereafter, one of our messengers had felled his companion. So far, he had been obedient, therefore my castle maiden had been given permission to help him beyond the borders. But instead of helping him to Twiskland, she fled with him across the Weser and further to the Magi. The Magi, who wanted to appease his friar's sons, appointed her as mother at Godebercht in Chunland, but she wanted more. She told him that if he could eliminate Adela, he would become the ruler of all Friar's land. She was an enemy of Adela, she said, because due to her intrigues, she had not become a mother. If he promised her Texland, her messenger would serve as guides for his warriors. All these matters were confessed by her messenger himself. The second writing. 15 months after this last General Assembly was the Friendship or Win month. Everyone gave in to cheerful joy and happiness, and no one worried except to increase their pleasure. But Ralder wanted to show us that vigilance should not be neglected. In the midst of the festivities, the fog enveloped our regions in dense darkness. The joy disappeared, and vigilance did not want to return. The beach guards had left their emergency fires, and on the paths, no one was to be seen. When the fog lifted, the sun shone through the cracks in the clouds onto the earth. Everyone came out again to cheer and sing. The young people marched singing with hawthorn flowers, and these filled the air with their delightful fragrance. But while everyone bathed in joy, betrayal had landed with horses and riders. Like all the wicked, they were aided by the darkness and stealthily entered the paths of Lindiswood. In front of Adela's door, 12 girls pulled 12 lambs, and 12 boys pulled 12 goats. A young Saxon man rode a wild buffalo that he had caught and tamed himself. They were adorned with various flowers, and the girls' linen dresses were trimmed with gold from the Rhine. When Adela came out of her house onto the street, there was a rain of flowers on her head. Everyone cheered loudly, and the horns of the boys sounded above all else. Poor Adela, poor people, how short will the joy linger here? When the long procession was out of sight, a group of Magyar riders came galloping straight into Adela's yard. Her father and her husband were still on the porch. The door was open, and inside stood Adelbrost, her son. When he saw that his parents were afraid, he took his bow from the wall and shot at the foremost of the robbers. He staggered and fell on the grass. The same fate befell the second and third. Meanwhile, his parents had grabbed their weapons and walked towards them unconcerned. The robbers would have captured them quickly, but Adela came. She had learned to handle all weapons at the castle. She was 7 feet tall, and her sword just as long. She swung it 3 times above her head, and when it came down, a knight bit the grass. Help came around the corner of the lane. The robbers were felled and captured. But too late. An arrow had struck her chest. Treacherous Maggie. The arrowhead was dipped in poison, and that's how she died. The praise of the castle maiden. Yes, distant friend, thousands have already come, and even more are on their way. Well, they want to hear Adela's wisdom. Surely, she is a princess, for she has always been the first. Oh woe! What purpose would she serve? Her shirt is of linen, her tunic of wool, which she spun and wove herself. With what would she enhance her beauty? Not with pearls, for her teeth are whiter, not with gold, for her locks are shinier, not with gemstones. Yes, her eyes are as soft as those of a lamb, but at the same time so fiery that one can hardly look into them. But why am I talking about beauty? Surely, Freya was not more beautiful. Yes, friend, Freya possessed 7 beauties, of which her daughters have inherited at most 1, at most 3. But even if she were ugly, she would have been dear to us. Is she warlike? Listen, friend, Adela is the only child of our Grevitman. She is 7 feet tall, her wisdom is even greater than her body, and her courage equals both combined. You see, there was once a peat fire, 3 children had jumped onto that tombstone. The wind blew fiercely. Everyone screamed, and the mother was distraught. Then came Adela, and Ralda will give you strength. Then she rushed to the battle forest, grabbed alder branches, tried to make a bridge. Now the others also helped, and the children were saved. Every year, the children lay flowers here. 3 Phoenician sailors came who wanted to mistreat the children, but now Adela came, heard their screams, she knocked the villains unconscious, and so that they themselves would testify that they were unworthy men, she tied them all together to a spinning wheel. The foreign lords came to claim their people. When they saw how cruelly they had been mistreated, wrath arose in them, but they were told how it had happened. What did they do next? They bowed to Adela and kissed the hem of her garment. But come, friend who lives far away. The forest birds flee from the many visitors. Come, friend, this way you can hear her wisdom. At the tombstone mentioned in the praise, the mother is buried. On her tombstone, these words are engraved: do not hurry, for here lies Adela. The old teaching, which is engraved on the outside of the castle tower, is not in the book of Adela's followers. Why this has been omitted, I do not know how to write. But this book is mine, therefore I want to use it for the sake of my blood relatives,